This lecture is on discipline, motivation, and coaching. One key role of any leader is to coach team members to achieve their best. As a coach or mentor, you will typically help your team members to solve problems, make better decisions, learn new skills, or otherwise progress in their role or career. One proven approach that helps with this is called the GROW model. GROW is an acronym which stands for Goal, Current Reality, Options, and Will. There's Will. In its traditional application, the GROW model assumes that the coach is not an expert in the student's situation, and therefore must act as an objective facilitator, helping the client select the best options and not offering advice or direction. Now let's take a look at how to use this tool. Number 1, establish the goal. First, with your team member, you must define and agree the goal or outcome to be achieved. You should help your team member define a goal that is specific, measurable, and realistic. In doing this, it is useful to ask questions like, how will you know that you have achieved this goal? And also, how will you know that the problem is solved? Number 2 is to examine the current reality. Next, ask your team member to describe their current reality. This is a very important step. Too often, people try to solve a problem without fully considering their starting point, and often they are missing some of the information they need to solve their problem effectively. Typical questions that can be asked are, what is happening now? What, who, when, and how often? And what is the effect or result of that? The next step is to explore the options. Once you and your team member have explored the current reality, it's time to explore what is possible, meaning all the many possible options you have for solving this problem. Help your team member generate as many good options as possible and discuss these. You can ask questions like, what else could you do? What if this or that constraint were removed? What are the benefits and downsides of each option? And what factors will you use to weigh up the options? The next step is to establish the will. So by examining the current reality and exploring the options, your team member will now have a good idea of how he or she can achieve their goal. In itself, this may not be enough, so your final step as a coach is to get your team member to commit to a specific action. In doing so, this will help your team member establish his or her will and motivation. Some useful questions. So what will you do now and when? What could stop you from moving forward? And how will you overcome it? Will this address your goal? How likely is this option to succeed? And what else will you do? A great way to practice using this model is to address your own challenges and issues. When you're stuck with something, you can use this technique to coach yourself. By practicing on your own challenges and issues, you will learn how to ask the most helpful questions. Also, the two most important skills for a coach are the ability to ask good questions and effective listening, which we've talked about before. Don't ask closed questions like, did that cause a problem? But ask open ones. What effect did that have? And be prepared with a list of questions for each stage of the GROW process. Listen well, and your student does most of the talking. Remember that silence is valuable thinking time. You don't always have to fill the silence with the next question. Next, let's talk about some tips on employee motivation. Number 1 is recognition and attention. When your employees accomplish something, they have achieved something. Your recognition is appreciation for that achievement. I believe that most managers don't give enough attention and recognition because they don't get enough. Therefore, it doesn't come natural to do it. If this applies to you, you need to drop this excuse like a bad habit. Become a giver. Look at the price, and recognition is free. Number 2 is applause. A form of recognition, yes, is a very specific form. Physically applaud your people by giving them a round of applause for specific achievements. Where and when, you ask? Well, the answer is wherever and whenever. You can do it at meetings, even staff meetings, company-sponsored social gatherings, luncheons, or even in the office. You can do it at the end of a shift, before a shift, and whenever possible during the middle of a shift. Using plaques or trophies is another effective way of applauding your people. Although wooden applause is often successfully used in the form of Employee of the Month plaques, more creative ideas are sorely underutilized. Take the time to be creative, matching special accomplishments with unique awards. Number 3 is one-on-one coaching. Coaching is employee development. Your only cost is time, and time means you care. And remember, your people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Whenever the emphasis is on positive feedback, I make sure to do this coaching in public. Whenever you recognize and encourage people in public, it acts as a natural stimulant for others who are close enough to see and hear what is taking place. The next is training. Is training ever really finished? Can you possibly overtrain? The answer is no and no. For whatever reasons, too many people feel my people have already been trained, or I've got good people and they only need a little bit of training. But training never ends. So schedule tune-up training sessions. These should be led by you or by a supervisor with help from specific employees who show a particular strength in the skills taught. I know this takes time, but these types of training sessions will continually enhance the performance of the people and the productivity of your business. Number 5 is career path. Your employees need to know what is potentially ahead for them and what opportunities there are for growth. This issue is sometimes forgotten ingredient to the importance it plays in the overall motivation of people. Set career paths within your organization. Do you promote from within? Although specific circumstances require you to look for talent outside of your company, you should always first consider internal personnel. If you do this, you are sending a very positive message to everyone that there is indeed further career opportunities within your organization. The next is job titles. When you talk about job titles, you are tapping the self-esteem of people. How someone feels about the way they are perceived in the workforce is a critical component to overall attitude and morale. Picture a social gathering that includes some of your staff. The subject of work inevitably comes up. Will your people be proud, embarrassed to share their title and workplace? The importance of feeling proud of who you are and what you do is monumental. Be creative as you think of possibilities for titles. Have your staff come up with ideas, giving them input into the titles? Bottom line, you are dealing with pride, and pride enhances a positive attitude. And a positive attitude is the foundation for continuing success. Next is good work environment. A recent industry study shows just how inaccurate your results can be. Employers were asked to rank what they thought motivated their people, and the employees when they asked to rank what really did motivate them. Employers felt that working conditions was number 9, next to last, in terms of importance. And what did the employees actually say? Number 2. Working conditions are very important to the way employees feel about where they work. Cosmetically, does your workspace look nice? Are there pictures on the walls and fresh paint among other features that generally make people feel good about their environment? Does their workspace have enough room, or are they cramped in a sardine can? Is the temperature regulated properly so they don't feel as though they're in an Amazon jungle one minute and a North Pole the next? Next is on-the-spot praise. This too is associated with recognition, but the key here is timing. When there is a reason for praising someone, don't put it off. Promptness equals effectiveness. Praise people when the achievement is fresh on everyone's mind. Number 9 is leadership roles. Give your people leadership roles to reward their performance and also to help you identify future promotable people. Most people are stimulated by leadership roles, even on-the-spot appearances. For example, when visitors come to your workplace, use this opportunity to allow an employee to take the role of a visitor's guide. A great place to hand out leadership roles is to allow your people to lead brief meetings. Utilize your employees' strengths and skills by setting up tune-up training sessions, and let one of your employees lead the training. The best time to do this is when new people start. You can also assign a meeting leader after someone has attended an outside seminar or workshop. Have them lead a post-show, briefing the other employees regarding the seminar content and highlights. Have your employees help you lead a project team to improve internal processes. Also, team spirit. Have a picture taken of you and your entire staff, have it enlarged, and hang it in a visible spot. Most people like to be physically seen as part of a group or team. When running contests in your area, try to create contests and affiliated activities that are team-driven. People driving to reach goals together definitely enhance team spirit solely because they must lean upon each other and be prepared to be leaned on. One very effective idea for me has been building a collage of creative ideas with the team theme. All employees are responsible for submitting a phrase referring to team on a weekly basis. Each of these ideas, such as team, total enthusiasm of all members, or there is no I in team, is placed on the wall, creating a collage of team-oriented phrases. Don't have one person responsible for this. Do it as a whole team. Number 11 is executive recognition. This can be used as a secret weapon. And like any secret weapon, timing is most critical. If this is used too often, the value is diminished. And if it is used only for special occasions and rare achievements, the value is escalated. We talked earlier about general recognition and the positive impact it has on your people. That will go up a few notches when it comes from an executive. Some of the same vehicles can be used here, such as memos and voicemails. To add yet another level of stimulation, have an executive either personally call to congratulate someone or a group, or even show up in person to shake the hands and express his or her appreciation themselves. Next two are social gatherings and time off. Scheduled off-site events enhance bonding, which in turn helps team spirit, which ultimately impacts your positive work environment. Halloween costume parties, July 4th picnics, Memorial Day, Labor Day, and Christmas parties are only some of the ideas that successfully bring people together for an enjoyable time. Some others that could work are softball games, group putt-putt, golfing, or even movie madness. The other one, no wonder, is time off. Implement contests that earn some time off. People will compete for 15 minutes or a half hour off just as hard as they will for a cash award. Allow early dismissals, late arrivals, and extended lunch periods or additional breaks at times. Also, additional responsibility. There are definitely employees in your organization who are begging for and can handle additional responsibility. Our job as managers is to identify who they are and, if possible, match responsibilities to their strengths and desires. Next, theme contests. Over the years, contests have produced up to 170% increase in job performance. But equally as important, they've helped maintain a positive environment that has reduced employee turnover by 400%. Overall, the most successful contests seem to be those affiliated with different themes. Holidays, anniversaries, sports, and culture are examples of ideas based on contests. Sports, without a doubt, provide the largest opportunity for a wide variety of contests. Even culture can be used to create theme contests. The last but not least is pizza, popcorn, and cookie days. Every now and then, pizza, popcorn, or cookie days will help break up that everyday routine and help people stay motivated. Because it is a natural tendency for people to get excited in anticipation of something, structure some of these days in advance. Then buy some pizzas or different cookies, or even whip out some different types of popcorn. It could be a fun treat for your employees. And that completes the list of tips on employee motivation. Next, let's identify developmental needs. This can be used to assist you in figuring out employees' training needs. There are 6 steps to be followed. Step number 1, review team members' job descriptions. Start by thinking about what work your team members should be doing. This will be defined by their job descriptions. Identify the skills they need to do things well. Also, job descriptions can be out of date. So before using them, think about training and ensure that they reflect what your team members actually do. Number 2, meet with team members. Your next step is to meet one-on-one with each team member of your team. Your goal here is to have an open talk about the kind of training and development that they think they need to work effectively to develop their career. You can start out by asking questions like, what challenges do you face every day? What is the most frustrating about your role? What areas of your role or organization do you wish you knew more about? And what skills or additional training would help you work more productively or effectively? Then, discuss with them what they would like to get out of training and ask them to visualize the outcomes that they'd like to achieve. What does the future look like to them? Also, find out more about their own personal goals and think about how well these goals align with the organization's objectives. Ideally, training and development will help them in both of these areas. Step 3. Observing your team members at work. Next, keep an eye on how well your team members are doing with their key tasks. For instance, could they be quicker with key tasks, or are they procrastinating on projects? This might indicate that they're not confident in their abilities or are not sufficiently well trained in their key skill areas. Try to be fair and straightforward when you do this. If team members know that you're watching them, they might act differently, but if they discover that you're watching them secretly, it could damage the trust that they have in you. So be sensitive, ask open questions, and where appropriate, explain your actions. Once you've observed your people working, it can be useful to confirm your assessment by setting specific, time-bound tasks that give them the opportunity to demonstrate their skills and abilities. Do this positively, though. Don't set people up to fail. Step 4 is gathering additional data. If you approach data gathering in a sensitive way, you can learn a lot from others who work closely with the person you want to assess. These people could include internal or external clients, past bosses, even peers or coworkers. So remember, while gathering additional data, make sure that you don't undermine the person's dignity and that you respect the context. For example, in some cultures, it may be acceptable to talk openly with coworkers. In others, you will have to do this with a lot of sensitivity. Also, avoid unfocused generalizations. Ask people to back up their comments with specific examples. Step 5. Analyzing and preparing data. Now, look closely at the information you gathered in the first 4 steps. What trends do you see? What skills do your team members say they needed? Are there skill gaps? Your goal here is to bring together the most relevant information so that you can create a training plan for each member. Last but not least is then determining the action steps needed. By now, you should have a good idea of training and development that each person on your team needs. Your last step is to decide what you're going to do to make this happen. There are several training and development options to consider. Number 1, on-the-job training. This is when team members shadow more experienced team members to learn a new skill. This type of training is easy and cost-effective to set up. Next, instructor-led training. This is similar to a class where an experienced consultant, expert, or trainer teaches the group. Also, online training and e-learning. This can be particularly convenient and cost-effective. This can also assist employees in gaining some other technological experience as well. Also, cross-training. This teaches team members how to perform the tasks of their colleagues. Cross-training helps you create a flexible team, and you can lead to higher morale and job satisfaction. Active training, which involves games, group learning, and practical exercises. This type of training is often effective because it pushes people to get involved and be engaged. Also, mentoring or coaching. These can be effective for helping your team members develop professionally and learn new skills. Make sure that you take into account people's individual learning styles before you commit to any one training program. Remember that everyone learns differently. Your training will be most effective if you customize it to accommodate everyone's best learning style. Also, help your team members get the most of their training. Encourage them to arrive on time, take notes, and communicate with their instructor and each other and about what you have learned. It might also be helpful to perform a type of after-action review to see how well the training went. This completes the lecture on discipline, motivation, and coaching. Take these tips home and try to utilize them in your own supervisory experiences. Thanks for listening.